Hi, we're reading The Wheel on the School by Maynard de Jong, pictures by Maurice Sendak. We are on chapter 10, and we are in the middle of it. We're going to finish this chapter, and that's where they are. In the sea, the old horse suddenly lost his footing. The tide had swept his feet from under him. He pawed and snorted and coughed. Then he was swimming. He coughed once more, threw his head back from the rolling waves, and swam on. He didn't panic in the least. Giannis looked at the old plug admiringly. "You know what, Tin Man, when this is all over, Shora owes your horse a big bushel of oats. Doesn't he, fellas?" "2 bushels," they shouted. "Well, see to it as soon as possible," Giannis said. "You'll see to it they do it, right, teacher?" "Yes, Giannis." They came nearer the submerged boat. The rounded bottom was completely under the tide water. Dalva and Lena were standing waist-deep and chest-deep in the water over the boat. They were clutching each other to keep their footing against the steady tug of the tide. Fortunately, the stern of the boat broke the force of the tide and sent the full strength of its current sweeping along both sides of the boat. But the slimy boat provided an insecure foothold. The two on the boat never moved their eyes from the coming wagon. "Lena, did you really find a wagon wheel?" Alka shouted from the wagon. Lena forgot her plight in her pride. "Yes," she answered back, "and a real big one. It's real good. The salt water kept it perfect, but it's so waterlogged, Grandpa Dalva and I couldn't budge it." The wagon had now drawn so close they could hear the old man say to Lena, "What did I tell you about that grandpa stuff?" Lena giggled. The boys were asking questions. Giannis sternly silenced them. "Time for all that when you're back on the dike. Now shut your magpie mouths. Better take the horse and wagon beyond the boat," he told the Tin Man. "Then we can let the wagon box float back over the boat. If all of us are enough of a load, maybe we can ground the axles against the boat bottom long enough to pull up the wheel." The Tin Man nodded and tugged at the lines to execute the tricky maneuver in the tide current. Giannis turned his attention to Dalva. "As the wagon backs toward you and Lena, grab and climb on. We'll help pull you in. But watch that you don't step into that hole in the boat. Look, Dalva, do you know exactly where the hole is so we can back up to its edge and not get the wagon box too far over it? It's got to be a straight pull to get that wheel out." "Thought of that, Giannis, and marked it with a buoy." Dalva cheerfully pointed to his cane floating out before him. "Tie the rope that's tied to the wheel to my cane." Giannis laughed. "Good for you," he said approvingly. Now everything went tense. Everybody was silent. The wagon had swung ahead of the boat, but the Tin Man was having difficulty getting the old horse to stop his hard swimming and to allow the current to sweep the wagon backward over the boat to Dalva and Lena. The whole instinct of the animal was to swim with all his might against the dike. Against the tide. He snorted and fought. He did not want to drift helplessly backward on the current. The Tin Man spoke soothing words, all kinds of soft, understanding cluckings. They knew each other from all the years. The old horse began to listen and to relax. The wagon started drifting backward toward Dalva and Lena. The old man and Lena leaned forward, reached out. Now they both grabbed the wagon box. Eager hands reached out of the wagon and pulled them up. Up they came together. In the back of the wagon, tight against the tailgate, Giannis sat, intent on the floating cane. Now the wagon neared it. "Everybody to the back end," Giannis said. "We've got to weigh the back end down and try to make the axle dig into the keel of the boat to stop the wagon." Everybody crowded around Giannis. Their weight was enough. Suddenly the wagon stopped and settled down on the keel of the boat. The horse was still swimming. "Keep him swimming, just enough that he holds the wagon straight," Giannis said. "It mustn't swing around in the current." "That's exactly what we're doing," the Tin Man shouted. "But be quick back there. The horse is tiring." "Get down, you, and grab that cane," Giannis told Yella. "No, don't think about it. Flat on your belly in the water, in the wagon box, and grab." Yella came spluttering to his knees with the cane in his hands. Giannis grabbed it from him. "Now everybody hang on to my chair, and up with that wheel." Giannis was pulling the rope as he talked. He took a new grip as the rope tightened with the weight of the wheel. The chair began creaking. Giannis's great arms bulged. The creak of the chair was the only sound above the rushing of the tide. The wheel began coming up. Suddenly it caught against the edge of the hole. Giannis muttered, got red-faced and fierce, and then with a mighty heave and a tug he freed the wheel. Up rose the rim of the wheel out of the water. But Giannis's violent struggles had loosened the axle from its dug-in hole on the rotted keel of the old boat. Suddenly the wagon pushed backward out over the hole, and the wheel started to go under the wagon. "Teacher, Dalva, grab the rope," Giannis yelled. "Just hold. Hold the wheel from sinking back. Tin Man, make that horse pull with all he's got. Kids, all you kids, tip my chair down to the water. Come on, tip it. I won't fall out. I'm tied in. Tip it, I say." They all obeyed. Giannis, wheelchair and all, tipped down toward the water. He strained against the ropes around his chest. He reached as far as he could down under the wagon and the water. "Just so I get one finger on that wheel," he said. And then he had it. Had it with both hands. His arms strained and swelled. "Now tip me back up," he ordered. The boys pulled. The teacher flung his arms around Giannis's chest, and Dalva, even Lena, grabbed Giannis on the back of the chair. Up came the chair. And clutched in Giannis's big hands, up came the wheel. After his chair stood straight again, he swung the wheel up over his head, held it there triumphantly, and stared up at it. "Hey," he grunted between his teeth, "a man can do something now and then without a lot of legs." Then he let the wheel down, and they took it from him and lowered it to the bottom of the wagon. "It's done," he yelled at the Tin Man. "It's done. Now give old Bone Rack his head. Now he can go with the current, and the wagon will push him to shore. Poor old skate." The horse swung. The wagon swung. Horse and wagon swung around and swept toward the dike at the speed of the onrushing tide. The old horse merely had to move his legs to keep himself upright. From the dike came the excited cries of the women. They were crowded together at the edge of the water. They waved their arms and cheered. The dike loomed closer and closer before the wagon in the sea. The tide swept them on toward the solid dike, which rose like the wall of a great fort above the thundering sea.